You can run 1 kilometer in 4:30, yet the 10K still breaks you at kilometer 7. That's not bad luck. That's not a weakness. It's something far more uncomfortable, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. For a long time, something about the 10K genuinely bothered me. I kept watching runners who were clearly fast. Runners who could explode through a single kilometer in 4:30, sometimes faster. On paper, they should have been untouchable. 6 minutes per kilometer should have been easy. And yet, race after race, the same thing happened. Around kilometer 7 or 8, their breathing would spike, their stride would collapse, and the 60-minute pacer would quietly disappear into the distance. What disturbed me wasn't the failure itself, it was the contradiction. How can someone who is undeniably fast feel so slow when it matters most? How can a body that produces speed so easily suddenly run out of answers? At first, I blamed my mindset. Then, discipline T, then training volume. But none of those explanations survived contact with reality. These runners were doing everything right. They were working hard, they were suffering, and still, they were breaking down at the same point every time. That's when an uncomfortable thought started creeping in. What if the problem isn't that we're not fast enough? What if the problem is that every step we take is costing us too much? Before we go any further, welcome to the channel. If you care about understanding running at a deeper level, not just running harder, take a second to subscribe. It helps this channel keep producing science-driven content like this. Because once you see what's really happening here, you'll never look at the 10K the same way again. Once that question took hold, it became impossible to ignore the assumption that almost all of us carry into our training without ever questioning it. We tell ourselves a simple story. If the goal is a faster 10K, the solution must be more speed. We calculate the numbers, see 6 minutes per kilometer on paper, and convince ourselves that the gap can only be closed by running harder and faster. So we chase the track, we chase intervals, we chase the feeling of exhaustion because it feels productive. After all, pain gives us the illusion of certainty. I lived inside that logic for a long time. Every hard session felt like proof that I was moving in the right direction. Every brutal workout was a deposit into some imagined future fitness account. And culturally, this mindset is rewarded. Suffering looks serious, sprinting looks impressive. Standing on the track, gasping for air, feels like commitment, but beneath that surface, something wasn't lining up. The effort kept increasing, yet race day stayed stubbornly the same. I wasn't getting closer to the answer. I was just getting better at tolerating discomfort. And that's when I realized how dangerous this assumption really is. Because once you believe that speed alone is the solution, you stop asking a far more important question. Not how fast you can run, but how long your body can afford to run that way before it starts breaking down. Once I started questioning that belief, the entire picture of the 10K began to shift in a way that felt both unsettling and clarifying. I'd always treated the 10K like a prolonged sprint, something you muscle through with enough grit and speed. But when I finally stripped away the emotion and looked at what the race actually demands, the illusion collapsed. A 10K isn't won by moments of speed. It's sustained by what happens between those moments, minute after minute, breath after breath. Nearly all of it is powered by oxygen, not adrenaline. That realization forced me to confront an uncomfortable truth. The systems I was training so aggressively were never designed to last. They're explosive, yes, but they're short-lived by nature. They burn bright and fade quickly. And yet I was relying on them to carry me through an effort that quietly punishes inefficiency over time. This is where everything finally clicked. I wasn't failing because I lacked speed. I was failing because I was spending energy as if it were unlimited, when in reality, it was anything but. The race wasn't exposing a weakness in my legs. It was exposing a misunderstanding in how I thought endurance actually works. And once you see that, it becomes impossible to unsee. Once I accepted that endurance, not raw speed, was the real battlefield, a new question emerged that completely reframed how I evaluated performance. If speed wasn't the answer, then what was the metric that actually mattered? That's when I came across a concept that, at first, felt almost too simple to be revolutionary. The speed you can sustain while still relying on oxygen. Not how fast you can sprint, not your peak pace on fresh legs, but the fastest velocity your body can hold before it's forced to tap into systems that drain you dry. This is what VVO2 max quietly measures, even if most runners never hear the term. The comparison that finally made it click for me was counterintuitive. The fastest human on Earth can move at astonishing speeds, but only for seconds. Meanwhile, elite distance runners operate at velocities that would feel impossible to most of us, yet they do it calmly, rhythmically, powered almost entirely by oxygen. The difference isn't courage or pain tolerance, it's sustainability. And that realization was humbling. It meant that chasing top speed had very little to do with breaking through the 10K barrier. The real work was raising the ceiling of what could feel controlled, repeatable, and aerobic. Suddenly, the goal wasn't to run faster at all costs. It was to redefine what fast actually means when time is the enemy. Once I understood that sustainable speed was the real target, I started paying closer attention to how that speed was being produced, not just how fast the watch said I was moving. That's when I noticed something subtle but unsettling. Runners who struggled late in the 10K didn't look weak. They looked tense. Every step seemed forced, as if they were pushing themselves forward with sheer muscular effort. Their legs were working hard, almost too hard. And the harder they worked, the heavier they looked. Then I began watching efficient runners more closely. At the same pace, they appeared calmer, quieter. Their stride had a spring to it, as if the ground itself was giving something back. That contrast led me to a simple but profound distinction: muscle-driven running versus tendon-driven running. Muscles consume energy every time they contract. They demand oxygen relentlessly. Tendons, on the other hand, behave like elastic bands. They stretch when you land and recoil when you take off, returning energy that didn't need to be generated again. That return is almost free. This was a turning point for me. It explained why strength alone often fails to translate into endurance. If you rely on muscle to move you forward, every step becomes an expense. But if you learn to use your tendons as springs, movement becomes economical. And over 10 kilometers, that difference isn't subtle, it's decisive. Once the idea of tendon-driven movement settled in, another question naturally followed. Which part of the muscle system actually thrives in this middle ground between speed and endurance? For a long time, I thought endurance was built only by slow fibers and speed belonged to fast ones. That binary view felt clean and intuitive, but it never explained why some runners could hold strong, controlled paces for so long while others unraveled. The answer lived in the middle, in a group of fibers that rarely get the attention they deserve. Type 2A fibers are hybrids. They can produce force, but they're also capable of using oxygen efficiently. They are fast without being reckless, strong without being wasteful. In many ways, they are the fibers that define a good 10K runner. But they're also incredibly sensitive to how you train. Run too slowly all the time, and these fibers quietly shut down. They're never asked to contribute, so they fade into the background. Sprint too aggressively, and they burn out early, overwhelmed by demands they can't sustain. Neither extreme teaches them how to survive under steady pressure. What they respond to is precision, controlled intensity, sustained efforts that are uncomfortable but manageable. When trained correctly, these fibers learn to behave aerobically under load, and that adaptation changes everything. It turns speed from something fragile into something durable, and it explains why the right kind of work feels transformative while the wrong kind only leaves you tired. Once you understand how fragile that balance is, the moment of collapse in a 10K stops feeling random and starts feeling inevitable. The race often begins calmly. The pace feels controlled, breathing steady, rhythm intact. For a while, everything appears sustainable, but beneath the surface, efficiency is slowly eroding. As fatigue builds, the fibers designed to work economically begin to lose their edge. To protect forward motion, the body quietly recruits less efficient helpers, fibers that consume more oxygen to do the same job. At the same time, heat accumulates and fluids are lost. Blood thickens. The heart works harder just to maintain output. Nothing dramatic happens all at once, yet the cost of each step keeps rising. The pace hasn't changed, but the price has. This is why the breakdown usually arrives between kilometers 7 and 9. Not because effort suddenly increases, but because the system can no longer afford the way it's been moving. What once felt aerobic quietly crosses a line. And when that line is crossed, willpower stops being relevant. The body simply enforces the bill that's been accumulating since the start. Once the physical systems begin to unravel, there is one final layer that quietly magnifies the damage, and it often goes unnoticed. Running is not just a mechanical act, it's a neurological one. Every step begins in the brain, as electrical signals travel down to coordinate muscles in precise timing. When that pattern is familiar, movement feels smooth and economical. When it isn't, the signal becomes noisy. Muscles fire out of sequence. Opposing groups are tense against each other. Energy leaks in places you can't see but can definitely feel. This is why unfamiliar paces feel disproportionately hard, even when fitness is present. The body isn't just working harder, it's working inefficiently. The brain, unsure of the rhythm, recruits more muscle than necessary as a form of protection. The result is internal resistance, a quiet tug-of-war happening inside the stride itself. Practicing race pace doesn't make you faster in the obvious sense. It teaches the nervous system to relax. And when the signal becomes clean, effort drops without any change in speed. That clarity can be the difference between surviving the final kilometers and moving through them with control. When all of these layers come together, the picture becomes clear enough that it invites an honest look inward. There's a simple audit I return to again and again, not because it's flattering, but because it's revealing. Look at your fastest single kilometer. Then look at your current 10K time. If that gap feels uncomfortably wide, it's not a character flaw, and it's not a lack of effort. It's a sign of inefficiency. Being able to run 1 kilometer very fast proves you have power. It shows that speed exists inside your system. But struggling to sustain a much slower pace over 10 kilometers reveals something else entirely, that speed is leaking away step by step, not through weakness, but through waste. This distinction matters because it changes how failure feels. You're not broken, you're not slow, you're simply spending too much energy doing the same work. And once you see that clearly, the problem becomes solvable. Not by pushing harder, but by learning how to move with less internal resistance, less friction, and far less unnecessary cost. Once the problem is framed this way, the solution stops looking dramatic and starts looking deliberate. Nothing here requires more suffering. It requires better intent. The focus shifts from chasing exhaustion to reducing waste. You strengthen structures that return energy instead of burning it. You train fibers to stay calm under load instead of panicking. You extend durability so efficiency holds when fatigue arrives, rather than collapsing under it. This approach doesn't feel heroic in the moment. It feels restrained, almost patient. But over time, it changes the entire relationship with effort. Progress no longer comes from proving how hard you can push, but from learning how little you need to spend to move well. And that shift, subtle as it seems, is what unlocks performance that finally lasts. And once you experience that shift, it becomes impossible to chase performance the old way again. For a long time, I thought progress meant running faster, hurting more, proving something to myself with every hard session. Now I see that the real breakthrough comes from understanding what the body is trying to protect. Efficiency isn't about being cautious, it's about being precise. When every step costs less, confidence replaces panic and control replaces desperation. The 10K doesn't reward brute force. It rewards restraint, awareness, and respect for how endurance actually works. When you stop trying to overpower the distance and start working with it, the race changes character. You're no longer surviving the final kilometers. You're moving through them with intention. When you step back and look at the whole picture, the lesson goes far beyond running. What breaks us is rarely a lack of effort. More often, it's the quiet inefficiency we carry day after day without noticing. We push harder, stay busy, add more pressure, believing that intensity alone will move us forward. But real progress comes from learning how to spend our energy wisely. In running, that means moving with less waste. In life, it means choosing clarity over chaos, intention over reaction, and sustainability over burnout. When you align your effort with how systems actually work, results stop feeling forced and start feeling earned. I'm curious to hear your perspective. In your own life or training, where do you feel you might be spending too much energy for too little return? Leave your answer in the comments so we can learn from each other. And if this kind of thoughtful, science-backed content resonates with you, consider subscribing to support the channel and help it grow.